Rock and roll, well, mate. I'm really excited. Thanks for joining us on the Both Sides podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Matt Spooner on, the director and one of the best buyers agents in the eastern suburbs.
Australia, really?
Well, really, yeah.
Very kind. Very kind.
And the reason I'd say you're one of the best is not just you are one of the best in terms of your volume and how much you achieve financially, but you're also one of the best in terms of being a champion bloke and a down-to-earth, humble guy. So
thanks, man.
I guess what I'd love to start the conversation with is just to give people a bit of an insight in terms of what success can actually look like when you're one of the top in the industry. Because we get so many questions, especially off the back of our previous podcast with other buyers agents, that people are like, holy smokes, there's actually a career to be had in the industry. So, mate, I'd love to kind of let you kind of take the baton and share a little bit about yourself, what you've been able to achieve and what you're looking to do moving forward.
Like for me, it kind of actually started as a bit of a passion project more than anything else. Like I was actually a mortgage broker. I don't know if you know that, but I was a mortgage broker for about 5 years. Frankly, as a mortgage broker, I wasn't working super hard. Like doing, maybe like, average numbers, you'd say, working with a really good mate of mine. And I was actually in a position where I was working a lot with buyers agents through that process and kind of just, picked my interest in it. Initially, the idea in terms of, this business started off by just going, okay, cool, well, we refer buyers off to brokers now. So like, why don't we just try and manage it in-house? And went and got my license, went through the process of, that is the basic idea. And look, between then and now, so much has changed. Like it's probably snowballed, certainly more than I'd initially envisaged it. And frankly, like within probably 2 or 3 months of starting that off, I was quite lucky. Lived in an area where I knew heaps of people within the industry. Was quite lucky in terms of my personal networks, to actually get a lot of support through clients and friends and those sorts of things who were quite keen to get me on board as their agent early on. And then within, probably, a year, it was just flying. I'd already hired a staff member. And then between, sort of that first year and now, the business has doubled, if not tripled, year on year. To now, be in a position where we've got 11 agents that work in the business. I've got a team of 6 to support me, and we're transacting on, just over $200 million worth of property a year, which is awesome. And that was, certainly last year, and we're in a position where we're probably, close to on track to double that this year. So
my big question for you is that there are a lot of people where they go, you shouldn't be aiming to double year on year. Yep. Like it's just too big, blah, blah, blah. Like set realistic targets where you go 500 to 750, then 750 to $1 million, and then $1 million to $1.25 million.
Yeah.
I doubled. Yeah. You've doubled. What do you think about that process, and why do you think some people double and some people just take the leveling up process?
Probably 2 areas. I think when you're at the early stages of your career, I think it's easy to double. Because if you really back yourself and you're really going hard on this, well then frankly you should, right? Because if you look at the great agency industry, be it sales or buyers agents, they're in a position where they're writing these astronomical numbers. And I'm lucky enough to work alongside heaps of them all the time. So the bar is set really high. Do you aim to double? Well, I don't necessarily, but all I really aim to do is compare myself, year on year, month on month, to do better than what I did last year or last month.
So you don't set yearly goals for it?
I do set yearly goals, but not necessarily doubling.
Okay.
So I guess for us, what's happened is it's naturally sort of doubled. Whether that continues over time, like I'm sure there'll be a point in time where that's not possible anymore, right? And that's why I think ultimately in terms of when you set yourself goals and targets, and personally like where I see or get inspiration, it's just like, I'm actually like a super competitive person, and I gamify everything. Gamify everything. Yeah, love it. Right, I literally come and I'm like, okay, how am I going to beat my score yesterday? And that's just for me. Like, I think that's why we've been able to grow, because I just push and push and push and push.
And when you're saying push, exciting. Do you mean push hours? Are you really going in and going harder on hours?
To some extent. I mean, I'm lucky I've got really good coaches in this game, right? And part of the thing for me, which I think has been a major learning curve, and even like my team, a major learning curve for them, and something which I've tried to sort of not drill into them, but get them on board with is focus on your career like it's a lifestyle. And to me, like, I don't have a set start and finish time. Like, generally speaking, of course, my daily routine, I'll be in the office by like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'll probably go home, 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. I know my energy is really high in the morning, etc. And the hours that I work along, like when I go home, I don't necessarily go home and put the phone in a drawer and that's it. You know what I mean? Will I work on a Sunday? Yes, I will. But it's more about being there and ready. And frankly, if you look at it, to my mind, like it's a lifestyle rather than something that has like a start and finish time, I think that's when you go really well, because you're all in on that. You're not necessarily in a position where it's, hey, yeah, I can flick the switch. Today I want to be Matt Spooner, the buyer's agent, but tomorrow I'm going to be someone else. It doesn't work like that,
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what does the routine look like for a successful buyer's agent living in the East? What time are you starting your day in the morning before work? Or what's that look like for you?
I'm a weirdo. Well, not a weirdo, like many people are like this, but I'm up pretty early, like usually like 4:30, 4:45. I'll either go and train, like big ocean swimmer, that sort of stuff, go to icebergs most mornings. Then frankly, I like to, I guess like you guys would probably experience this yourselves, like we run a lot of clients, right? So the day can be hectic in terms of, communication with those guys. And like, I don't want to ever be in a position where people feel like they're not getting service or getting missed or anything like that, right? So for me, the first couple of hours of every day are all about clients, right? So I want to set myself up for the day, like while my phone's not blowing up, getting back to everyone, making sure that, clients are pumped up, feeling the love, if you want. And I guess that's really important because, like you guys, I'm sure you're in a position where your days can go completely haywire, and that can happen here. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, bang, negotiations
on the daily,
100%, right? Like that's just how it works. So in the morning, particularly, I find that that's a great opportunity to really set myself up for success in the day to come.
Yeah. So do you try to book no appointments in the morning at all?
Well, I mean, what I try and say to my guys in the morning, like use the morning to create opportunity and close it out in the afternoon, right? So I actually don't mind having appointments in the morning because I find, like, particularly if I'm pitching for a new client or something like that, I find that my energy is really high in the morning. I'm super sharp usually, and it actually gives me the opportunity. Like, I'm a big, dialogue person. I love, having good conversations with people, that sort of stuff. And for me, if I'm sharp between the ears, like, I can come up with some absolute corkers, believe me.
What's been some of your best dialogue lately?
Oh, look, don't worry about that, mate. I can't tell you the competition. No, but really, it's about, like, I think ultimately we're in a position, it's quite different, right? And I train my guys, right? And I'm big on training. You need to be, as a buyer's agent, you're not there to sell anything, really, right? You're actually there to provide a service, right? And in order to be able to provide a really good service to someone, guess what? You're actually a trusted advisor, right? And you need to position yourself like that. So when we talk about dialogue and those sorts of things that we use when we're sitting with clients, it's more about, hey, like, I'm your advisor, okay? My advice for you is to do this. You can choose to take that advice or not, but that's my advice. And my advice gets results based on X, Y, and Z case study. So that's the sort of stuff which we use, and we use very effectively.
Yeah. Because you're now pitching business in the teens of millions, like you'll do a deal 10 million, 15 million plus. How does that process unfold versus doing deals that are lower?
I mean, to be honest with you, Dan, like, yes, some of those clients we do, but my average purchase price I work on is 5.6 million. And that's, anywhere from, last year we had clients at, 800,000 and some up to the, teens and 20s, right? So I think ultimately for me, the process doesn't change that much. The dialogue might change a little bit. The conversation might change. The basis of why they actually need our services will change. But ultimately, the way I like to pitch a business is I go, right, I've got a toolbox here, right? And I'm sure you're the same. What do you value, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? Is it the fact that, you want privacy? Do you want off-market access? Do you want negotiation skill? Do you need someone to do the legwork for you? Bang, bang, bang. What might these things be? And imagine if you actually, use the restaurant analogy. You sit there and go, here's the menu of all the stuff that you can have if you come to Buyer's Market. What do you want? off that, right? And I think at the $15, $20 million mark, sure, the things that they might select off that menu might be different to the guys that are in the, $1.5 million, $900,000, $2 million mark, right? But at the end of the day, they're all value adds which we can bring. And my aim, frankly, is, let's say, for example, we're able to capture a client at that early stages of their purchasing journey. Fantastic. Well, that's awesome because right now you're going to value this stuff, but guess what? I'm not going anywhere. So in the future, when you upgrade and move on to your next purchase, you're going to value X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
So in terms of actually getting those clients to begin with, you've had to build up in terms of price ranges. How have you been able to build up in terms of your price range clientele?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did a training session with two of my guys yesterday here who've just started with us. And like a big thing that buyer's agents generally will struggle with, and I've been there, I'm sure you've been there, we've all been there, right? And it's stressful, is a lack of leads. And we sat there and they're like, Matt, we're not getting leads. We're in a position where we're not getting referrals from agents, or we're just not getting cut through. And I actually pulled up, I was talking about some of that growth, in terms of how the business has moved. And I pulled up my data, big data guy. I pulled up my data from like 3 years ago, right? My average purchase price at that point in time was like 1.2 million, right? And we're doing, 30 of those a year, right? Or whatever, like all first home buyers, right? Now it's more than that. But for me, it was like, okay, cool. Focus on that right now because that works right now. I can get access to those clients. They trust me, they like me. I don't necessarily have the runs on the board, but I can show that I'm super hungry and I'm good at what I do. And then once I've actually been able to demonstrate and get runs on the board and show, hey, I'm good with this, then trust me with this. Do you know what I mean? And then trust me with this. And then trust me with this. And like I walk into, a pitch for a big client now. Do you believe I'm shitting myself? Yeah, I am. 100%. Right? Because I sit there and I go, well, I don't own a $10 million house. Guess what? Why should you trust me? I'm this young upstart from Bronny, blah, 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 whatever. But it's actually then about, and I know you guys do this and I've heard you say it yourselves, like it's then process, right? It's then process and hunger because if I'm in a position where I'm walking in there and I've got amazing clients, right? Like I won't name who they are, but I've got some clients who are in seriously high profile jobs, and top of their careers, which is awesome. And I'm super thankful that they actually took a chance on me because, why would they have? But at the end of the day, they go, you're super prepared, which I'm always prepared. Your market knowledge is excellent, which it is. And I make sure of that, right? And I know how to, put together a transaction, and I know how to put together a process and a strategy for them that works. And that's really how you get to those, as you move through the process.
Beautiful. So, mate, I want to get a bit deeper on this because you've just highlighted some of your process to succeeding with client acquisition. So can you talk me how you actually prepare for a meeting, what's involved in that, what you actually take to a meeting, and then also how you complete your market knowledge? How do you do things so you can succeed?
I think you've got to be really active in your marketplace to get market knowledge, right? So something sells, I want to know about it. I want to know how much it's sold for, who was involved, who bought it, that sort of stuff, right? Because it's that sort of stuff that your clients value, right? And if you've got the relationships with the agents to be able to deliver on that or to be able to get that information, then that works really well, right? But in terms of actually preparing to sit down with a client, there's a few things which we do. And I think, I like to study, how other people pitch, and I'll often take little bits of, what I like and apply it to my own pitches and that sort of stuff. And, I've looked at a whole lot of other people and how they've pitched, right? And I think the key things that, to my mind, make a lot of sense is, and it was actually Benny Handler who mentioned this to me, before, during and after, right? Have you heard this one? It was great. It was actually really good. I took a lot from it. So you've got 3 stages of a pitch, right? And there's the before the pitch, the during the actual meeting, and then afterwards what you do, right? So I always found what would most people do when they go through that pitch process? Well, they focus on in the meeting, right? They're like, how can I get you to sign up with me, or how can I get you to sign an agency agreement right here, right now, right? Now, that's all well and good, and sure, that works, okay? And then obviously after that, they go, yeah, cool, you didn't sign right now, so then I'm going to harass you and chase you after, right? And that's before, that's during and after, right? But I guess what I try to do now is I focus on the before, right? So I want to know everything about that person when they come in before I meet them. And I want them to think that I'm their buyer's agent before they even sit down. So how do I do that? Well, I collect data from them, have a really good initial call. So I keep that down. I've got that to a really good sort of format now. Qualifying really well, right? Lead comes in, call it instantly, right? Unless I'm in the middle of a meeting. If I walk out of a meeting, I walk out of this podcast right now and there's a lead. Bang, straight away. Yeah. Right? And it's funny, I was in a training the other day. And the guys were like, oh, yeah, Spooner again. He's on the, call the lead instantly. It's okay if it's an hour. And I said, guarantee you call them instantly. They'll turn around and they'll say, geez, you're efficient, right? And I got out of the meeting.
That's what happens.
Kevin Hart on this to me all the time.
I got out of the meeting. I was like, okay, cool. Here's a lead. Call it on speakerphone. And they went, geez, you're efficient. And the guys went, geez, he's paid an actor. He's paid an actor. No, I'm joking. But
it's so true.
It's so true. It works really well. So call them instantly, right? And then book them for a meeting and show them how sharp you are before you even get them in the office, right? Instant phone call, hang up, straight away calendar invite. Straight away they then get an email with an agenda of everything that I'm going to talk about in the meeting, and then they click on a link and then it takes them to a fact find which they fill in on their brief. Right, so they come in here. I've got all the information on them, why they're moving, who they, have they sold something, have they got something to sell, who's their finance with, bang, 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 all of this data, right? Do they know anyone I've worked with before? Why do they actually want to use a buyer's agent? All that sort of stuff, which is important. And then in the meeting, I will then before the meeting, I will then prepare based off that data, right? So I'll treat them like a client before they actually meet with me.
Gotcha.
Right, so
using Zoho?
Yeah, use Zoho, yep. So Kev fills in his form. He's looking for, a semi in Randwick, for example. You better believe I come prepared to that meeting with 3 or 4 examples of what you can buy. But currently, yeah.
Wow.
But also, I'll come prepared with case studies of how we've helped people in the past.
Yeah.
And I think once you've got runs on the board, and this isn't super helpful for buyers agents when you first start out because you need to think of other strategies to employ. But once you've got runs on the board, if you can actually talk to how you've been able to assist clients previously, then they relate, right? And then they relate and they go, and then you use dialogue, you go, look, most of our clients in a similar position to you have found that by using our services, this, and this. And they go, I'm like that too. Bang. Right? And then that works really, really well. So it's really about understanding, hey, why are these people going to use us? And they generally will come up with that or volunteer that information at the start during that process if you qualify them well enough and if you run through that process. But it's also about being super sharp.
Of course. Of course. Now, in terms of your post process, what does that look like?
Good question. I think it really...
Sorry to interrupt. Do you try and sign them during the sign up?
Rarely.
Really? Okay.
Rarely, yeah. Because, again, at the end of the day, Dan, for me, and I'm really big on this, right? I'm not the buyer's agent for you to use if you want someone who's super salesy and that sort of stuff, right? I really care about my clients and I work really hard to get them a result. But at the end of the day, we are an advisor, right? And I say to my clients, they always go, how do we work really well together? I go, well, we communicate effectively. You're not afraid to have robust discussions. You trust me, that sort of stuff, right? And in terms of that post-meeting process, what does that look like? Well, it's really about trying to double down on those things, right? So, for example, I like to, again, almost treat a client like they're a client after that meeting. It's a foregone conclusion that they're going to sign up if the meeting's been good enough and I've done all the things I need to do. So then run their search. Bang, Dan, I've got something if you look at, let's go and have a look at it tomorrow, that sort of stuff. But it is also about being super sharp in your follow-up. I think that's critical. If you're not sharp in your follow-up, you don't actually demonstrate to a client that, hey, I want to work with you, that's not good enough, right? So walk out of a pitch, bang, proposals in the inbox within 5 minutes. Have all the relevant templates and stuff sent up so that it's there, right?
This is good. And these critical. Are the little 1%.
1%ers.
That make a difference, don't they?
100%. I always ask clients, why did you work with me? Why did you make the decision to work with me? And believe it or not, I know this stuff sounds like really basic and you go, oh yeah, you don't really need to do that. Trust me, you do. It makes a huge difference. I also for example, walk out of the meeting, proposal, and a text straight away. Bang. Hey, Dan, it was really lovely to meet you today. Just wanted to say I'm really looking forward to working with you. You'll find my proposals in your inbox. I'm available all afternoon today if you want to discuss. Bang.
100%.
That sort of stuff works well.
This is only maybe 4 or 5 nights ago. I finished your listing appointment at 7:30 at night. One of my guys is just finishing off at the office, and I go, "You're at the office, yeah?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Great. Go get a post list pack. Go drop it at which has like a candle and how to prepare your home and all this other stuff. Go drop it at the door right now." He goes, "Oh, it's 7:30. It's going to take me 30 minutes to get there. I'm not going to get there till 8. I'm like, perfect. That's even better. You're going to show them that you're a hard worker.
Yeah.
What happened? As soon as I pressed that doorbell, "Oh my God, you're working at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
No way." I get a text message. "You guys got the business."
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
Same thing. I went to like a launch for a penthouse that Maclay Longhurst had in Manor on, which is in Elizabeth Bay. Epic penthouse. And I saw a couple of my clients there who were buying in Bondi. And they were like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "Well, what do you mean? It's important I see this." And they're like, "Far out. Like, you're really across shit, aren't you?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's what I do." And then, I think for them, like, the trust level just went bang. Because they're like, okay, this guy's actually invested. And that works really well.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you think, coming back to what you said about when you were starting off as a buyer's agent, you did the same thing that I was doing. I was going out to all these other agencies and agents and saying, "Hey, can I come to a listing appointment with you?" And I'd take little bits and pieces and I created my own. Now, this is obviously what you've done with your pitch. How does a buyer's agent go about actually getting in the room with other buyer's agents to see their pitch when they're in completely different companies? And buyer's agencies are a different space, right? We're not talking about like in the hills. I can come out to the east and go with Alexander Phillips to a listing appointment because it doesn't matter to him. I'm not competing with him. But you and Dan, you could be competing for the same client. So how does this happen? How does this happen? You know, how do you actually go about getting in the room?
Mine was actually primarily sales agents, by the way.
Okay.
So primarily sales agents. Because, yes, I've seen some buyer's agent pitches. And also, like, I'm very lucky in that I've got good coaches, right? So I coach with Josh Fegan pretty regularly. He's a good mate of mine. He's a absolute...
He's so sharp, isn't he?
Mate, he's unbelievable. Like, what he's done for me in my business... I can't speak highly enough of him. Benny Handler as well. Like, he's also been a very good friend of mine and sort of gone through that process together. So good coaches, number one.
Both
champions, so epic. But then also, like, good support from sales agents. So like a lot of my good mates are in that position, and they're also a lot of them are top of their field, right? So sometimes sitting there and going to them, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this in my listing or in my buyer presentation. What do you think about that?" And they go, "You're an idiot because that will make this happen." And you go, "Thank you, that's a good point." And you go, "Why don't you try doing this?" Yeah,
you got your sounding board of agents that are relaying this info, not just from a buyer's perspective, but from the agent's perspective.
Totally.
That's fucking smart.
Totally,
man.
And also, like, other buyer's agents, one thing I can say, honestly, and I mean this super genuinely, I like probably 99% of other buyer's agents in our marketplace, and get on with them.
Who's the point one?
Dan. He knew that was coming. But, like, honestly, I do, right?
Yeah.
Most of them are ethically aligned. Most of them are good blokes. There's also just... There's some people that I really deeply respect, right? One of them, for example, was someone that I respected the most. I used to lose heaps of business to her, was Kim Ball, who's now an associate director within my business. I was like, can't beat him, recruit him.
Not a bad idea.
I think that's important, but it's also like, if you're in a position where you have an abundance mindset and you go, "Do you know what? Yeah, cool. I lost this business to XYZ buyer's agent. Who cares? I'm going to go and find another client because there is more business out there. I'm not going to sit there and feel upset for a week because I lost that business." Then that's great. And I think what that actually allows you to do is it allows you to share. Like, I even did a conjunction with another buyer's agent last year. We shared a client, which is awesome. Do it again.
Really?
Yeah, it was cool. But I think ultimately it's about leveraging the fact that within the networks that we have, there's all different people, right? There's all different skill sets. Emma, who works alongside us now as an agent, she was the general manager of Ray White Double Bay before working with us. And one thing that she said to me was, there's so many different flavours of ice cream, you know what I mean? And not everyone's going to be a Matt Spooner client, right?
True.
Which is absolutely fine. And that's fine because I don't want everyone to be my client. And I think for us, talking about that pitch and learning what to take and what not to take, it's about having the ability to diversify. We do that with our team as well. I've got people in my team in such a variety of backgrounds. I've got Kim, ex-Macquarie Bank, and I've got Trent Fowles, ex-Bondi Lifeguard. Find me two different people, right? But both excellent. Yeah. Both excellent at what they do. Yeah.
So then let's talk about when you sign the client up and the process post sign up.
Yep.
How are you then converting business effectively? I called Vince Licata before the podcast to see what advice would you have when it comes to speaking with Matt. And he's like, ask Matt how he goes with once he gets an off market. How long has he typically seen or have access to those properties before they come online, or what's your process look like there?
Good question.
That is a good question. I think a big part of that comes down to that market knowledge piece, right? So I can tell you now the amount of properties that you might see selling, one sold as a massive result from the weekend, 46 Imperial Avenue in Bondi. It's a knockdown house sold for 7.3 million, 10 registered bidders, $1 million over reserve, right? Crazy,
Jeez.
right? Welcome to Bondi. Not for me. But anyway, that property we were aware of probably 2-3 months before it came to market. Of course, that had to be sold at auction, so maybe not the best example, right? But many of the properties that you might be seeing now, we've been aware of for a long time, okay? But ultimately, it's about when we're out there, you want to leverage those relationships, right? Now, my guys here, particularly in my team, they are on the phone like you wouldn't believe speaking to agents. I listened to your podcast with Jordan from Cohen Handler in Queensland. It's exactly the same here. It was talking about that resourcing. It's what we do here, but we do it on the same scale, probably more, right? Because there's thousands of agents that we need to be dealing with here, right? So for us, it's about also thinking about, okay, who is the right fit for this property? We have, buyers even that aren't necessarily signed up. Bang, can I put a deal together, with this buyer and this property? There are a lot of people in Sydney that are what I'd call opportunistic purchasers as well. So they're not sitting there actively looking, but if I find them the right opportunity, bang, they're ready to go. So that's the sort of thing which we can do. But from a process perspective, I want to know about everything that's coming up. Right? When we call looking for opportunities for clients, we're not necessarily calling with one particular client in mind, right? I train the guys, hey, I'm looking for, Danny's looking for a Sammy in Bondi, he's got $5 million to spend, bang, bang, bang. Is there anything else you're showing off market this week which we need to know about? Bang. And then these probably get 2 or 3 more off the back of that. Yeah. Right? And at the end of the day, put them all in the database and then start thinking about, okay, cool, database is now my IP. Right, I've worked hard to develop that database of property. Now, how can I leverage that to actually turn it into opportunity? Yeah.
Gotcha.
Really powerful.
Are most of your clients owner-occ or?
Yeah, probably 95%.
95%.
Yep.
Now, are they translating a lot more? Now that you've been in the business for a few years now and your traction's really started to hype, are those clients that were original owner-occ buyers, are they now starting to convert to investment buyers too?
Funnily enough, yes. Yeah. And I'm super lucky with the clients I work with, right? Some of my clients now are some of my best friends, right? And the relationships that I think it's actually a little bit different sometimes working as a buyer's agent. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kev, but working as a buyer's agent versus working as a selling agent, because you do spend so much time with these guys and the relationships that you can forge.
No, you're right. You're spot on.
Yeah, if you're really good at building relationships, the relationships that you can actually forge are so strong, right? So I drive down a street in Bronte, bang, call my clients, hey guys, just drove down your street, how's things going, blah, 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 house looks great. Yeah, mate, we're actually thinking about buying investment. Bang, did that the other day, it's great. And that sort of stuff you can do, but you also start to get people coming back, oh, hey, kids are in a position where they want to buy their first property. We're in a position now, I'm, coming up to be 4 years into this business now. So guess what? People are starting to need to upgrade, which is great. So I think that's quite powerful and certainly something which we're leveraging.
And then leveraging off the sale referrals too.
Yeah. Cut that out. Yeah.
I guess in terms of when you see high performing agents, what would your let me rephrase this. What would be the best way for an agent to utilize a buyer's agent in the market?
That is a very good question, because I think you can very effectively utilise a good buyer's agent to really help your business.
Yeah.
And I have it happen with a lot of agents that I work with. The major one and the obvious one is to help progress a vendor to market, right? Because ultimately, very effectively, many times in the last 12 months, have we been called into a lounge room by an agent because they've got someone that's actually a seller, but they can't find what they want to buy, right? So I always say...
so they'll bring you in.
Yeah, often. Yeah, it works very well, right? So, we did it really effectively. There was a lady who had a house in Coogee, and it was, quite unfortunate circumstances that they needed to sell the house, and she hadn't sold for a really, really long time. So we were introduced to that lady, and frankly, it was a confidence piece, right? So she needed someone there that she could really trust in that purchasing process. Think about like the Sydney market generally, and how often people will hold on to a really aspirational piece of property for a long period of time. They won't sell it.
Decades.
Right? Decades, correct. So then you've got people, we did it the other day, we went into a house in Vaucluse, they've been there for 34 years, right? They're not in a position where they're ready to sell, right? Because imagine them walking into an open home with all these other buyers, and they haven't been to an open home for 34 years. Far out, So how can an agent effectively utilise us? Well, for example, with that lady in Coogee, she wanted to buy in Vaucluse. She had no idea where to go in Vaucluse. She wanted an apartment. So we brought her on board as a client. We held her hand through the process. We showed her 3 or 4 things that she was able to buy that worked really well. And that actually gave her the confidence to be able to then take her property to market. Now, in the meantime, photography, floor plan, copy, bang, 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 all ready to go. So find the right property, bang, you're online later that afternoon. And that works really well. That's super effective.
Love it. Expanding on that a little bit more for an agent's point of view, do you think it would be helpful to have a buyer's agent at an open home?
Yes and no. I want to say yes, right? Because as long as it's me. No. I think the challenge is obviously, one of the issues, and, it's very important, and you'd agree, Kev, like agents need to keep impartial with all these buyer's agents, right? So there's more and more buyer's agents popping up. And frankly, I welcome that. I think it's great because there's different strokes for different folks, as they say, right? Have your buyer's agent at an open home, I think, yes, could be good. But I think also, I personally find... there's 2 things. One, if it's a general sort of, you're going to refer a buyer, assume everyone does need a buyer's agent, which I think works well. But also, I think I like to work with the agents really closely, right? And understand, okay, who needs us for what particular reason, right? And I find that that's very, very effective. Personally, I would prefer... 5 really good quality clients versus 100 average ones, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to provide exceptional service and I want to provide a really good outcome for these clients. And if we have the ability to do that for 5, then it's probably going to be more rewarding in terms of business sense to be able to deliver that to those 5 versus, half service 100.
Yeah.
So I think the answer could be yes, but it's more about picking timing, picking how that buyer's agent is going to work through the process with you.
How did you build your relationships with the real estate agents in your core areas?
Yeah.
How did you first start building it? Was it coffees? Was it brekkies? Was it just phone calls?
A whole lot of stuff, really. I think for me, I was lucky that I had a few mates that I sort of knew from school or whatever, right? But that wasn't
the agents.
Yeah, and that wasn't the basis of it, right?
No.
It was actually really tough to start with.
Yeah.
Really tough, right? Believe it or not, where I got my start in terms of clients coming through were, I had a really good network because I was super involved in surf lifesaving and that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I had a great network there. First clients came through that, and still do have a lot of clients that major sponsor that organisation now, all that sort of stuff, right? So love that as a bit of a community tie. I think the main thing with developing agent relationships was it was perfect process, get really good, and then let me show you what I can do,
Yeah.
You know, and that for me was a big thing. Like, I think what we have in terms of process and our deliverables and all that sort of stuff, and the way that we communicate effectively, the way that we follow things up, the way that we work with our clients, the way that we work with the agents is very, very good.
It's meticulous.
It's meticulous, right? And I don't say that in any way to be arrogant or anything like that. Not at all. It's just
what it is, right?
That's right. You know, and we work hard to perfect that.
Yeah.
So
you got to own that.
yeah, and these guys that are really good agents, like, we're lucky enough, like, we work with so many different agents that are all, you know, at the top of their field, like in our marketplace, right? From your Ben Colliers to your McClays to your Alexes to all sorts of people like that, right? They all have different expectations in terms of communication. They all have different processes, different methodologies, all that sort of stuff. And I think at the end of the day, like, you know, we're lucky enough to be able to work with all of them, but it's really about, hey, let us show you what we can do. And that's where we develop those relationships, by actually being able to put a transaction together, for example, or actually being able to deliver a client or something like that.
So when you first started, just to get this right, you leveraged hard off your network.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's one piece of advice that I'd have for anyone listening, is that's what happened with me when in my real estate field, where I leveraged hard off my network, because obviously I grew up in the area, and we were very much utilising friends and family and all that type of 100%. Stuff to get it going. And then obviously it grows from there.
Yeah, and like the other thing as well, like I said this to two of the guys who just started in our office yesterday. I was like, have no shame when you first start. I was like, I went to the opening of an envelope. Seriously, I'd go to anything. I remember like going to so many networking meetings, this, that, and the other. Like, I was just like, right, I don't actually have the clients right now to fully take up a day's work. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to treat it like I do, but the clients are business partners, solicitors, mortgage brokers, whatever it might be, and I'm going to run my day like my job is just to network today, all day, every day, until such time as now you do have the clients. And don't get me wrong, like, even I've got so far to go in my career. Like, I'm only just scratching the surface now. You know, I'm like, I've got so far to go, you know, and I think for me, like, you know, those activities are still very important, you know, and they continue to be important.
You're still in your growth phase.
Like, man, I'm 28 years old. You know, I've got a long way to go. I know, you know, the sun's not been super kind to me, but you know, like, I'm in a position where I could be doing this for the next, you know, 20, 30 years. But I love it.
You're 28.
Yeah.
Machine.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck? He's 28.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
What rough GCI do you reckon the business will do this year?
Look, I'm not a big numbers guy, but, you know, I'm shooting to write over 3 in my personal team, and then the business as a whole should, you know,
and you're
do
28.
a fair bit more than that. Yeah.
Personal question: did you grow up with money?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay. How?
I mean, like, sorry, I'll correct
like
that.
middle class.
Yeah, like, I went
You
to a
didn't
good
have
school.
money, though.
I went to a good school, you know, that sort of stuff. Like, I went to Waverley College, you know, 2 career paths out of Waverley College, go to Long Bay, go to real estate. That's a joke. But, you know, like so many of our esteemed real estate alumni from Waverley College. But, no, I mean, I would consider it a middle class.
Middle class,
family.
cool.
Yep.
So you didn't come from money, cool.
Yep.
How has it been for you in your personal life, from going from essentially not having much to where you're at now, and how are you actually managing the money? Because I'll tell you, one of my personal things that I struggle with is I didn't come from money either, middle class, whatever it may be. Now I have money coming in. And I don't know what, like, it's hard for me to go, wow, like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Now, when you first started having those paychecks roll in, what did you do?
Yeah, it's...
And what was your mindset around
A couple of nice steaks and bottles of wine.
It's a good question, actually, because I think, like, one of the things that, like, yeah, it is a good question, because one of the things that I think is tough, like, you know, I really didn't... I came from, you know, amazing, you know, good family, not like, you know, close with parts, but not others. And honestly, I would consider the upbringing that I had to be reasonably, for lack of a better term, tough. Being quite open and being open, and I think that moulded me a lot. And probably made me grow up quite significantly young, like beyond my years.
Because you're very mature.
Oh, most of my mates go like, "Oh, he's 50," right? But I think that's what it was, right? So I think, to answer your question in a roundabout way, like a big part of it is just, I guess, having those sort of quite mature mentality from early on. Yeah. But it is tough because it's like, you want to make sure that, do you know what? Like, to be honest with you, like my big thing, Kev, like it's probably like a bit of imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like big one, right? Because I know I'm a very good buyer's agent, right? I know that now, right? But I can talk shit with the best of them, believe me, right? And I'm being, vulnerable in saying that and open in saying that. But it's a little bit of, you start getting this stuff like, I work in a business now where I sometimes question, hey, do I deserve this? Should I actually be doing well? And then I sit there and you actually have to kind of pull yourself back in. You go, hang on a sec. You just did a really fucking good job for that client, right? And you just managed to train one of your staff to do really well. And that person's now succeeding. And for me, like, you guys are about to interview Trent Fowson. Trent, that guy, like, ask him about his ability to use a computer before he worked here.
Oh, really?
No, don't. I love that guy.
That's my first question.
I love that guy more than I can possibly mention, right? Because I'm fucking proud of him. And I think
he saves lives. So
that is the
how
thing.
can you not love him?
Correct. But I think for me, like, I guess very long-winded answer to your question is, coming from a basic life to a very complex life with business interests and that sort of stuff is a challenge. But I think at the end of the day, my experiences in my life have steeled me up for that, which is made me be able to deliver on it, I guess.
I can relate to that quite a lot in the sense that I had to grow up quite quickly and mature and etc.
Yeah.
And I've found since, like, it forces you to take those steps and to grow into positions like yourself where you're starting a business, etc. From my experience, it can become quite a lonely or isolating process.
Yeah.
During that, how did you navigate that, or what was that like for you?
It's funny that you mentioned that, right? Like the lonely sort of isolating part of it, I think that's big. I've really felt that. But one thing I can say, like, my team that I have here and also my mates are like, we're super close, right? And like my team here, like, we're like family, you know what I mean? Like, Tammy's like my sister, the boys, like, we're so close. We do everything together, literally everything, right? So I think at the end of the day, like, the other thing which we do is we're also quite open with each other, and we'll also talk about, when we're feeling like that, like, it's cool to sort of open up and lend a hand and that sort of stuff. And like, some days I'll admit, like, I come in and I go, fuck, I'm not feeling it today. But I try not have many. I don't have many of those days, to be honest. But I think if you're in that position where you're feeling lonely or isolated, then the best way to manage that is to have the right people around you to rely on.
Yeah, the table, that support piece.
100%. Yeah, it's big.
Mate, I've just gone through something similar, like, in terms of, if you don't have a support piece, Marty Fox actually spoke about it on his podcast. If you don't have that support piece and that sounding board, it's fucking hard.
Yeah, you can't do it.
It's fucking hard.
Yeah.
Now, I've recently just found my sounding board, my pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And now I feel unstoppable.
100%. That's the big thing, right? Like, you're in a position where you need to have that network that you can pick the phone up to, right? When you go through this, right? Like, when you go through business or life, right? Humans are social animals. Like, I'm super social. Like, I like to go out, but I can tell you one thing, what a lot of people don't know about me, I'm also introverted sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I love my own company, right? I love just having my own space, my own time, that sort of stuff. But for me, like the ability to be able to pick up the phone and go, you know, hey, XYZ, what do you think about this idea? And to actually be able to get really good quality feedback on that, like that's awesome. That's so powerful to be able to do that. And I think I'm actually quite blessed in like the marketplace that I work in, that I've got relationships with people who are, you know, at the top of their game, right? That can turn around and go, you know, yeah, this is what I would do, or this is what I have done. You know, and I think that's critical. But at the end of the day, like it's almost like that sort of virtual coaches group or virtual like boardroom where you come there and you go, hey guys, let's workshop this.
You work with the best agents in the country.
Yeah.
In the eastern suburbs, it's the mecca of Australian real estate. It's the most expensive real estate in the country.
Yeah.
Now, the people that you're dealing with in terms of the agents which are selling these houses are obviously also the top of the industry.
Yep.
They are the big guns, they're the big hitters, they're the ones that do everything right.
Yes.
Now, if you were to pick the top three, what would be the common denominator across the top three agents that makes them the number ones?
They're relentless, I reckon. Relentless in everything that they do.
Love it.
Right?
Expand.
Okay, it's funny, like that was the very first word that just came to my head, right? And I think about, you know, a number of these guys.
Seems like a Tim Grover book.
I think about, like, let's say, for example, I'm in a negotiation. Like, I'm like, leave me alone. Like, I'll get back to you soon. But they're like, bang, 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 bang. And they're just driving this result for their clients, right? Which I think is amazing, to be honest.
I just did that to one of my buyers agents last night 10 times.
Yeah. But I'm
9 p.m. at night.
But it's like you can't shake me. I'm not going to get upset about it. But I can imagine if you did that to someone who's got no experience in it, they'll shit themselves, right? So relentless in their pursuit of a result, and I think that's critical. The other thing is really crazy follow up. I reckon that the top guys that I see are exceptional at follow up, right? So you go through something, bang, an hour later you get a phone call, hey, what did your client think about that?
Yeah.
And I see that all the time.
So Saturday callbacks.
Not even Saturday, like immediately after, often, you know, that sort of stuff's great.
Unbelievable.
They also have phenomenal teams, right?
Yeah.
And they believe in their teams and they back their teams, right? I reckon that's the main thing. And like I try really, really hard to implement that with my guys. Like I believe in my guys. I back them so hard. I will literally I will push for them first. And if they fuck it up, I'll sort it out later. You know what I mean? Like that's what I believe in because I've seen that implemented really well. But I think some of the great agents that I see, like I believe honestly, like some of their teams are better than them, right? I believe that, right? And I think that they're either better than them or they will be better than them at one point or another, right? I believe that with my guys here, like Tomo in my office, like you should see this guy. He's unbelievable at what he does. His follow-up, he's relentless. His follow-up is incredible. He can close. He can put a deal together. He doesn't give up, you know? I give up sometimes. I'm like, man, you're fucking better than me as an agent.
Yeah.
And I think that's critical. And there's so many of these senior agents that, I can see that really shining through for them.
Mate, my last question for you, being relatively similar in age, what would be your best piece of advice for somebody like Kevin and myself?
Don't let age get in the way. That's the number one thing. For me, like, yeah, cool, I'm reasonably young. I think you're the same age as me.
25.
20, okay. You look old. I think don't sit there and like try and actually push through that imposter syndrome. Probably the big thing, right? Because I've had it, you guys have all had it, I'm sure, right? And it's like, okay, no, I'm not going to accept that I feel like that. Because I feel like that because of my own insecurity more than anything else. Clients not sitting across the table from you going, oh, you're 28, I'm not going to list with you or do anything like that. They're not doing that. They don't care. They want to know, Dan, how are you going to get me the house I want to buy? What's your strategy? Right?
What's your strategy?
That's the big one, 100%. Like I sit there and I say to clients come to me, they go, yeah, I'm going to go and speak to a number of other buyers agents. I say, fantastic, you should do that. Ask them what their strategy is for you to buy. Ask them that, right? Okay, and get them to build that for you, That's what they care about. And same for you, Kev. Like, I'd imagine people want to know how you're going to get them the best price.
It's all strategy.
That's what they care about, right?
That's all they care about.
So they're not sitting there going, what school did you go to, or, what's your star sign, or whatever it is. They don't care, But it's more about, hey, what's your strategy to get me into a position where you can get me the best result, right? And if you can articulate that, and it's funny, like, I even sit here now saying this stuff, right? And I don't, I listen to it and I go, people are going to listen to this and go, that guy's full of shit, blah, blah, blah. And that's my own imposter syndrome, right? But I know that I am good at that, right? So all I've got to do is sit there and go, hey, the reality is if I'm actually able to deliver on what I'm saying I'm going to do for these clients, at the end of the day, I'm going to have a whole lot of happy clients. Yeah. And if I have a whole lot of happy clients, guess what? My business is going to go well. My team's going to develop. My business is going to thrive, and I'm actually going to be in a position where I'm probably going to be a great agent. Yeah. And as I said, I'm just getting started. You guys are in the same position. It's just, don't let that get in the way. Push really hard and just back yourself. This is the main one. Just really, really back yourself in hard.
Have a fucking go.
That's good. That's exciting. I'm looking forward to part 2.
Run pumped. Legend. You're the best.
Thanks, Matty.
Thanks, boys.